Okay, welcome to Real Estate Inspired, the podcast that helps you win in any market. I'm Shane McGraw, and
I'm Lesa.
we're here as your co-host to guide you through the world of real estate investing with real-life experiences, educational insights, and the conversations that matter. There's some conversations that need to happen right now, right?
Absolutely,
100%. Whether
100%.
you're new to investing or making a comeback, we're here to make it easy and enjoyable. Have questions or a deal to discuss? We want to talk about deals. We love deals. Reach out to us anytime, and let's jump into this episode. So this is our first episode.
Yes, I love it. First episode. Many, many more.
We're not best friends, but if you were a boy, I'd be your best friend because I love you to death.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely think we would be best friends, especially if we lived close. Our spouses, and we would definitely be lots of family friends if we lived close, 100%.
I agree. So I want people to know why, and I love you to death. I think you're a wealth of knowledge. And I think our listeners are going to want to know why they should tune in regularly.
Yeah.
And, I think our experience leads us to our testimonial. Like it tells us where we're at, and you have had an experience. So I think you should take as much time as I could talk you into and tell us kind of your journey from 2008 on maybe. And
2008. Oh yeah, I love it. And
because here's why though, 2008 and today they have some similarities, and those of us who've been around, we have a little pit in our gut because we've been here before.
Yeah.
So, and we're also excited, right? Because it's kind of like going back to war. We're reinvigorated. It was almost too easy maybe for a while.
And I think that we have a benefit because we did taste 2008. So we know, and kind of, I don't know about you, but when 2008 happened, I never saw it before. And so I didn't know what to think. But now we have like a basis of like, wait a minute, this kind of seems familiar. So we definitely, it's a good starting point. And I appreciate that, Shane. Yeah. I tend to love to have other people talk, and I would love to always quickly change it to you, but I'll take a couple minutes to say who I am. My name is Lesa, and I love real estate. I've loved real estate even before 2008. I'll just kind of dive in. My family never owned a property. They didn't actually own a property until I actually started owning and having rentals. Then they started to buy. I would grab the newspaper when I was a kid, 10, 12, and say, hey, Mom, I want to buy this house. I want to go to this open house because we rented. And just something in me always knew the value of owning your own property, and no one could take that away, and you're renting and it's your property. Right. So I just loved real estate in the beginning. I bought my first house when I was 22. It was a townhome. We bought another home as a rental.
Married at this time? Was this you and?
So yeah, we actually bought it before we got married.
Okay.
Yeah. We knew it was a thing. We bought a townhome together. We actually bought another house before we got married. We signed in July and then got married in August. So we had two before we were married.
Did you do the thing where you bought one in your name and he bought one in his name, and then you got married?
Yes. We definitely should talk about house hacking, because house hacking right now is the way to go. But that's for a different episode. But so I bought two. We got married. Then bought another one. Had two little babies at that time, and then 2008 hit. So that kind of like sets the scene of I had three by 2008. I had two rentals. The one I was in, if you can get the visual of, how I love buying right outside the popular market, right? Like right outside where everyone wants because of the growth, right? Yeah. It will get there. It's cheaper. And I was in the process of fixing it up. It was my last live-in fix-up property that I ever did, because I had two under the age of 2, and we were fixing up a property. It was a Rambler. We signed January of 2007, and I swear to you, no, December of 2007, and January of 2008, it was like the world, like what that just happened. And I had a house that I had to fix up, live in it with 2 young kids. And I thought, what the heck's going to happen? We quickly fixed it up. We sold my townhome, which I regret. And I sold that one because I was scared. I don't have regrets because I learn from them, but I have things that I remember. And that one Rambler down in Vancouver, I always check the price of it because I bought it for $120,000 and it's worth about $550 to $500.
Okay, so here's the first lesson, our listeners. We have to sell stuff.
Yes.
And it could hurt in your stomach because, it's against our religion to sell things, right?
Yes.
Because we believe the asset has intrinsic real property value and it grows over time. And it's not, wait and buy real estate. It's buy real estate and wait, right? We know this. We know this. It's true. It meets all the tax thresholds, all the things, right?
Yep.
But we're not allowed to beat ourselves up because when we sell something, we're making the best decision we know how to. And here's the number one rule if you're in investment. Never sell something unless you have a better use of the money.
Say that again because I think that's important.
Sometimes it's professional, right?
Yes, but say that one more time because I really want people to sink that in because that is so true. You only sell.
Never up against a decision to sell. My thought is can I make this money more valuable in a different asset? Or can I solve a real world problem that I have or something that's in my gut where selling this real estate is not as valuable as what I'm going to do with the money. So
right.
Sometimes you have to sell because you have to sell, but most of the time you should try to sell to level up, to get more cash flow, to get the equity to work.
Yep. And I also had another property in Beaverton at that time too, because I remember we had one more. So I went down to 2 in 2008. And that's kind of where I'm looking at it now going, what did I do in 2008 to what am I going to do now? I am very excited because back then I didn't know. And a lot of people didn't know. So the people that I go to, like I go to you, I want to know your opinion. We all hadn't seen it because we kind of have seen it now. So now we know how to level up. We know that we need to buy. This is a great time to buy. And when interest rates goes back down, guess what's going to go back up? The value of the property. So if you can hold it and you can have it now, it's a really good time to buy. So that's me up to 2008 and what I've seen. What about you? Let's tell the listeners all about you because, man, you are just so much information and just so much knowledge that I think anybody that can spend any time with you, it's a blessing. So tell me about you.
I'll tell you the shortest version possible. I grew up, kind of bankrupt, really. Like I grew up in a broken home, lots of nonsense going on there, and I didn't have a real vision of how to even think and have permission that I could buy things, that I could have assets, that I could make money, that I could, do more than what I had saw. Everything I could see told me that there was very, very little for me to see.
Yeah.
And I decided around about 18 to join the Air Force. I signed up. I went to boot camp. I became a man. It changed everything about the way I saw the world. I started walking with my chest tall instead of beat dog. I was told things about myself when I was young that just weren't true, but I didn't know them. So they were my truth. And I had to go establish kind of a new. And when I was in basic training, I made a choice to become a man. Like there's every boy has a man conversation with themselves at some point that says, you know what, this is up to you, kid. And, I had kind of a don't be my dad problem. And so I needed to kind of become a Shane at some point and become me. And I became really hungry. I went to the Middle East, found Jesus, found my faith, found a fire in my belly and a desire to get married and to buy a house and to build a new chapter, to make my name matter instead of be this, for lack of further digging into it. I didn't want nothing to do with that part of my life.
Right.
But I recognized that Shane McGraw, had to establish some founding principles for myself and start reading and learning and surrounding myself with people in proximity and starting to really do some self-development. And that led me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yes.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book I ever read that taught me that there was multiple forms of income and that they were taxed differently because I didn't even know what taxes were per se, other than they came out in my paycheck. And I hated that. Yeah. And I didn't ever understand what fucking meant, but I didn't like it. And
I still hate it when taxes come out, but I know how to, change that.
And then I met this woman that stole my heart and just changed the trajectory of my world and answered all the prayers up to that date. And then her and I are still married. She's my best friend in the whole wide world. She's a real estate badass. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes,
I think we should.
Yes, we can.
She kicks it and her and I have been doing real estate together professionally forever. She does the real estate retail side, I do the mortgages, and we've been working, 1-2 punch for 20 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well,
how long have you been married? Because I think we've been married the
20,
same, right?
it's about 20 in April. Yep.
In April. What year did you get married?
05.
We got married August of 05.
Or actually, is it 05?
Oh, she's gonna see this and she's gonna be like, "What?"
I remember everything about our marriage. I am the chick in my marriage for sure. My wife's like, "Hey, suck it up, buttercup," and I'm like, "I just think you're so pretty." Like, I need counseling. Okay, so let's get back to real estate. So,
okay, yes, absolutely.
I get out of the military. I go to work for the government in the shipyard. Yep. I'm ready to take on the world, and my wife says, "Sorry, you can't go do entrepreneurial stuff because we have a baby coming. You need to go get a real job." So there I am, finding myself not in the military anymore, which I didn't enjoy. And now I'm working for the United States government, fixing submarines. And I'm like, this is the same job. I hate this job. So I did it for about a year. And while I was doing it, I went and became a mortgage lender. And I learned everything that I could learn. And then I made the jump. And, I whistled and skipped my way out of the secured compound while also being scared out of my mind because I was a new dad and a new husband. And I didn't want to turn out like my dad and be a bad provider. I was betting on myself. And I became a mortgage lender, started kicking butt, bought my first house, remodeled everything because I felt like you should. And then I had a VA loan. I didn't use it because I didn't know what that was, which is crazy.
You had a VA loan and you didn't use it?
Right. I had no clue. I didn't even know it existed, really. I literally had a blinder on for a time. I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? So I had to start asking really different questions.
Yep.
But I bought a house and then I bought a condo and then I was in contract for another condo and the market turned. Mm-hmm. And when the market turned, I was absolutely dumbfounded and had no clue what to do because what I'm good at is hard work. I can work. There's no one that's going to outwork me. I love to work.
Attitude and effort.
I get up early. I kick ass. I take names. It's the way I'm built. I always will outwork someone. There's no one that's going to beat me unless you cannot outwork something. And I could not outwork 2008. There was nothing I could do. I was cleaning carpets at night. I was, building decks on the weekends, and I was doing mortgages in the day. And I was regretting this thing that I quit the shipyard because that was my stable job. Yep. But you know what? I persevered, and something happened to me when I decided that I was going to overcome this. I ended up filing bankruptcy, which was super hard for a poor kid because I'm like, here we go, just like my dad. But with that, I learned, the American taxpayer bailed me out, and I do not take that lightly. I will never be in that situation again. And I've had a generous heart since then because I know I owe a debt. I was bailed out of I didn't really make any bad decisions that time. I just, you overextend yourself to a degree, and
overextend yourself.
Savings, but I didn't know how to have enough savings. Right. So now I'm because of that moment, I am much better version of myself, and I'm a much better version of being a good steward. So all my rentals have emergency funds. I have a capital expense account where I hold back. I don't take revenue from any of my assets until my assets adult on their own. Yep. Have all their stuff. And I think we should talk about some of that. But I ended up, now I have a pretty decent real estate portfolio where I have a handful of commercial buildings, handful of real estate buildings, and own a couple companies. And what I've learned is real estate is the best asset.
Yes.
It's always has been. It outperforms my businesses most of the time. Not in the short term, but the long term always, especially with the tax benefits.
Absolutely. I do think one thing to mention, because you said something that I do the exact same thing, is in 2008, I didn't have an account for every single property. I did not have account and a savings for every single property. And now with my rentals that I have, the rental I have, and the short-term rentals I have, and my assets, I make sure that each individually have it. They all have over a year worth of payments that are sitting in the bank.
Here? Wow.
Yeah.
Good job.
So I'm a little bit conservative. I need to be a little bit more like you.
Well, what's cool about that is you and I are totally modality difference on our, on the way we run our personal finances.
Right.
But we both make real estate work for us in our way, in our purposes, which is that's what's cool about real estate is there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate. You can do it anyway.
And you have to find what's comfortable for you. But because I experienced what I experienced and how I felt, in order for me to add a new, and it's one of my journeys and one of the things that I'm trying to overcome, as you know, that I talk about, not to be so conservative and to actually like do it, is that's my comfort level for me to be successful in this turn of where we're at right now in 2023, when I plan on buying and I know I'm okay because I have this set up for these assets over here. And that makes me feel comfortable so I can continue moving forward in 2023.
You know what's really funny? If you're ever sitting in a room with like a real estate professional that does this and owns real estate, they have their isms. You know what I mean? The isms, like their little truths. Like, I know that if I, like, there's some certain things that you learn to anchor your faith in or something. Like, you learn to trust the asset. I was at a seminar about a year ago, and there was this big guy up there that had a ton of apartments, and he was going through these things, and someone said to him, "Hey, what's coming?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." And he quoted a Jim Rohn, and he said something around, we can't control tomorrow, but I assume it'll be a lot like today. A lot like today. Probably the same. That's how Jim Rohn says it. He's gonna be more of the same. Which is like one of my favorites. But Grandpa Jim, if you don't have a good philosophy in life, go listen to Grandpa Jim, because that guy will speak to your soul. He does to me.
Okay, that's awesome.
But the guy said, I don't really know what to expect, but I'll tell you what, I have a plan if it doesn't go right. And someone said, "Well, what's the plan?" He said, "I trust my debt."
Yep.
And I thought to myself, I've never heard anybody say I trust my debt. Like, it's such a contradiction to what we hear. Like, who trusts their credit card? I sure don't. But debt takes on many shapes. And one of them is based on real property, real assets, tangible, like the old Bitcoin, the fungible. Does it have an application or a utility? Real estate does. It's illiquid. It's illiquid. I will give you that. That's one setback. But it is good. So a lot of us are sitting, me and you included, we're sitting on really good debt.
Yes.
Really good debt.
Yes.
Debt that affords all kinds of things that come from it. Like, for instance, if you have a real estate debt and it's tied in the 2s and 3s, it's now 4, 5, 6% better than today's market. How cool is that?
Yep.
Let's go ahead and we'll check that off in the keep it box, right? Like, let's keep this thing for a while. So let's talk ourselves out of real estate or talk ourselves into it based on the facts. When you buy something, you get to take a big chunk of money and you get to take on debt, which is not taxed.
Yep.
And that debt gets spread out over 30 years, which is amortization. We like amortization, right? Because it takes a big number and makes the obligation small. And then, I don't know about you, but I just did my first cost seg. Have you ever done one of those before?
No, I haven't.
Oh, gosh. So the gurus aren't bullshitting. It actually works. It's so cool.
What? They're being honest? That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll tell you more about that another time. But
okay.
My point I'm making is if you look at your debt you have now, that was associated to before the turn, if you will. It's good debt. It's great debt.
It's great debt.
It does its job. I mean, if rents go up, great, you're going to make more money.
Yep.
If rents go down, well, at least your debt is as cheap as it can be, right?
Yep.
Like, at least you have some outs. It's illiquid anyways. So,
sometimes your debt pays for the other debts. Like, I have a rental that pays for both. So I'm good with it.
Yeah. So I'm excited. We're going to test ourselves, right? Because we're young. How old are you now?
I'm 43 now.
Okay. I'll be 44 in like a month. And,
oh my gosh. We're so parallel.
I'm young in the sense that I haven't owned my assets long enough to get to the other side of them where they've paid themselves off or they've, right now, all my assets cover themselves. Plus I spin off enough to create some capital expense, in case something comes up. And then I can make revenue. And so I bring home, I have fixed cash flow that comes into my bank account every month.
I love it. I'm such giddy. I don't look at anything else.
It's not a ton, but it's in my money. It's the best kind of money. It's like, what's the best kind of beer? Someone else's free beer, right?
Yes. Absolutely. You're like, I just made 1,000. Woohoo! Let's go. Yes.
If it's small, I feel victorious. Of course, I don't like vacancies and I don't like leaky toilets. And don't get me started on, putting up with owning real estate. But I mean, is it really
long-term game?
Is it really that hard? Is it really that bad?
Not when you span it out, because that's the game, is to hold it for a long period of time. It's the long term.
One time I
Absolutely.
had this rental. This is a short story that's funny. I had a friend call me who's a realtor, and he says, "Hey, I got the red house and the yellow house next to each other. They're on this big piece of land, and they're right on the city sewer. So if you can get to the sewer, these land, I mean, the density is crazy. I mean, you won't regret this location, right? Because location is everything in real estate, right?
Yes.
And location isn't just about like proximity to a school. It's the type of land it sits on and the utilities, and there's lots more to
Girl.
right? And
Yep.
the urban growth area and tax benefits and tax
Yep.
abatements, and there's all kinds of really fun stuff that real estate. It's a really fun game, and
Yep.
location matters. It's the lead
Yeah.
indicator. So he calls me and says, "Hey, everything's happening on this road. You should buy." And he says that she's selling one, but she's willing to carry the contract on the yellow one. So I ended up buying the red one, and then I got into a contract on the other one. It went terrible. I had a septic inspection. I ended up getting out of that, and it ended up costing me like $5,000. I was super frustrated, but I owned this red house, and that thing was beautiful. It had these big mature apple trees and big, huge piece of land. It was all flat and treed and beautiful, and I loved owning it. Every time I went there, I was like, such a cool place. Turns out it was one of those. It was a house that was like on the side of like the water.
Yeah.
And back in the day, they picked it up and put it on a barge and barged it over to the other side of the water and then took it out and put it on this property. I didn't know that. So I was like, that's kind of cool. It was like
That
this
is
old
cool.
World War II era home. But
Yeah.
anyways, I ended up having it rented. There was a little bit of vacancy here and there, but I had it rented for about 3 years. And I wanted to sell it. So I had my bookkeeper, Amber, run the report and tell me what was my actual cash flow after all this time. Every expense minus
Yep.
every income and where were I at? And I made $1,900 profit in 3 years, 1,900. And I was so pissed. And then I sold it. And guess how much money I made when I sold it?
Way much more on that. I want to say 200,000.
I made 109.
Oh, see, 109 though in 3
$109
years.
in 3 years. And I started thinking, yes, there's the appreciation game that matters. And yes, there's the cash flow game. But I had both,
Yes.
and that was kind of cool. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that is cool. That's a win. 100%.
so the rental was terrible. Nothing ever came of it. But when I sold the asset and parlayed it to the next thing, I ended up taking that and buying a threeplex with the income. So
right there.
Yeah.
That's exactly the win. Keep going up. One of the beautiful things that I would love to do is inspire people. And I know that matters to you too. We talked a little bit about what we've done and what we have done up to 2008. Can you just tell me, what are you going to do in this time? Like, what are you doing with the market the way it is now? Because let's be face it, everybody wants to talk about it. Like, what is the market looking? What are we thinking? We don't have a crystal ball, but how are we setting ourselves up for success? And what are we going to do differently than what we did in 2008 to now? So you want to go first?
I don't have like this awesome response that'll make it sound like I got a plan, but I can tell you kind of the things that have been on my mind and on my heart. I don't know how you are, but I've been in the business long enough that I have a gut, and I trust my gut. I trust it. And I've learned to trust it because it's my gut. I mean, it's the compilation of all my successes and my losses. I develop an intuition, and I should listen to it because other people listen to it. People pay me all over the country to advise them on how to buy and sell real estate. I better follow my own gut. You know what I mean? So
that is me every day. I just want to tell you that because how many people call me up and I advise them what to do and I help them. And then I'm like, I got to follow my own gut too. So that is so true. Follow your own gut.
So the first thing I always do is if it's uncertainty, what do we know? Uncertainty, we continue to play offense because offense is how you score touchdowns, right? You got to participate. Real estate, if it's anything, it's a participation thing. You just got to figure out your way to be part of it, whether or not you're house hacking or you're flipping or you're investing or building or, there's, like I said, a million ways to do it, but participation is required in order to be, to get the benefit. So I'm trying to participate, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I'm also trying to not participate. I'm trying to protect myself from real estate. My personal income is tied to transactions because I help people buy real estate. So I only get paid money when people are buying and selling real estate. And that's a lot less of that is happening. That's the truth. Like when the government dumped trillions of dollars into the marketplace, it was like being on a cocaine bender. We just some stuff was happening. Lots of money was coming into the marketplace. It was insane. I am a mortgage lender, right? So what a lot of people don't realize is the housing market and the debt associated is literally it's like the mutual fund or the CD of the government. It's like literally the backbone of our economy.
Yes.
And whenever they want the economy to shift its shape, they toggle the housing market. They pull back rates, or they push up values, or they create scarcity. I mean, this is a game that the government plays, and the puppet is the housing market.
Yep.
It is.
100%.
Because it's real property. Why wouldn't they want a piece of it, right? Of course. So I'm protecting myself from my real estate. So I expect that there may be higher vacancies, although I don't believe that'll be the case because of the cost of ownership. I think it'll make renting as valuable as it's ever been. So I sat down and I did you ever heard of a SWOT?
No, not a SWOT. No.
It's like an analysis, and you ask yourself a series of questions, and you're looking for where are the opportunities, where are the risks, who do I need on my team, what do I need to learn? Like you're asking good questions to see if you can put yourself in a position to overcome something, to get somewhere, right? So my thing is I was like, how do I do this? So I figured this much. I'm going to be a better steward. So I'm going to trim all the fat I possibly can out of my personal finances, out of my investment finances. I'm going to get rid of any service or process or thing that's not productive. So I've been working for the last year and a half. I own several companies and stuff, so it's a process. But for the last year and a half, I've been asking myself, do I need this and do I use it? Is this equitable? Does it help me get where I'm going? So that's one thing. I think you always can trim the fat. Always trim the fat. And I think you can either make 20% more or save 20%, but you're still net 20% positive. So that's kind of a thing. So I always try to do like 10 on one side, 10 on the other,
Oh, that makes sense.
I'm spending my time being mindful of what I have. I'm finishing projects I started. I'm being more date driven and not giving, because there was a season there where if you didn't replace the roof when you could have and you waited 3 weeks, your house went up $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 because time was your friend. In real estate. With every passing day, your house was getting more valuable. So there was like this almost I'll deal with that one in a minute because I'm dealing with this one or something. Yep. I'm not doing that anymore. Everything has to be on a schedule. Everything has to follow a plan. I want to know what our next step is, who's going to help me. I'm renewing all my relationships, going out to lunch and coffee with my different contractors and friends and finding out where they're at in their business, because they had 6 vans on the road and now they don't.
Yeah.
So everybody's kind of got to recalibrate. So I'm doing that a lot of conversations, a lot of relationships, have ran that course. Yeah. And, it's not that you break up, the season is past and there's a new chapter. So I've done a little bit of that. And then now I'm playing offense. And so here's what I'm working on in offense. Yeah. I trust the math. So if all else fails, I'm not betting on the come. I'm not trying to predict something that I don't know. I'm trying to make mathematical decisions, and then this is my Shane's formula. I try to find math that follows a DSCR, basically like, what does the bank want from me, and how do I get assets that fit in the bank's boxes? So when the bank changes their guidelines, I change my guidelines. When they change their loan to, like, I call you all the time and you shift, like me and you were doing a couple takeout loans. I had a couple and I ended up having to, when I took those deals out from you, I had done all my performance at 75% because I was standard for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, my commercial lenders were like 70 and we'll underwrite it. So I got 72 on one. And I was like 70. That was new for me. I never equated in my head that the loan to value would come down below 75%. It just didn't seem like it was really viable to me. But sure enough, it did. So where was I going with that?
That you were going off of the DCR, and that's a debt service ratio loan type of loan. Like, what will
those of you who don't know what a debt service coverage ratio is, the shortest version is it's the amount of money, every dollar you make, what's the amount of cost, and you want to make, if you made $1 and cost $1, it'd be a 1-to-1 ratio, right? But if you made $1.25, it'd be 125%. So the goal is you want to make 125% or 115%, whatever your number is. Mine is 130. I'm looking for 130, which is hard. It's not the 1% rule like you've heard, but 130 is healthy because I'm making math decisions based on income. Because to me, a property, if I'm buying it, it's a business. It's an asset. It's got to have its own economics. And I expect it to make enough money to make it worth my time. A lot of times people have a hero complex where they think they can break the market with their game that they're playing, but I try to stick right in the middle. Yes. And then I try to try to do everything I can to exceed that. Yeah. So I do
Absolutely.
that. And I'm trusting the market. So right now I'm looking for more house hacking type things. I think that's my number one thing. It's where I've made the most. When I reflect, like every house that I added a basement to, I make the most profit to those. Where like, I did 3 basement conversions, and all 3 of them make me like $1,800 a month net cash flow to me,
More.
which is way better than a normal duplex. It's great. So I don't know if I'm probably getting carried away, but.
And just to define, in case the listeners don't, sometimes they hear house hacking as they have a duplex and they live in one part and another. There's ways to house hack. I mean, house hacking has been going on before the word house hacking was cool. Like I would live in a house, wait 2 years, and then sell it. And I did that like 9 or 10
This has 2
times.
meanings, right? It has like
Yes.
owner occupied house hacking, and then it has taking an asset and figuring out how to monetize it by adding more value to it. That's a house hack too. Like I have a rental that I added parking, and I showed you that one.
Yes.
It's my favorite because I get paid for people to park on my property. It's so cool.
That's awesome. That is awesome. But yeah, that's wonderful. Now, do you think I want rentals. I don't want to do flips. I want to do a couple multi-units and then add value like an ADU or a DADU on the back. What are your thoughts?
They have to have money.
Yeah.
So they wholesale and flip to generate the capital. That's most people use the wholesaling and flipping for the quick turn, so they can get the capital position and invest it into something long term.
Right. Or they can go and get like a HELOC on their primary and then use that too as well. Absolutely. 100%. Yep.
No, let's talk about house hacking for a second, because I think if our listeners are listening, one of the things that you and me are really good at is we borrow people money for a living.
Yes.
So house hacking is something that we should probably talk about, because we actually know the math of how it's done and what incomes can count and not count. So maybe we'll have a whole episode on the house hacking. We'll really dig in and do some case studies. But I would love for you to talk about what you're seeing from a house hacking standpoint now on your side. Those of you who don't know, Lesa sells non-QM money and I sell QM money. So I sell to people who live in their home, and Lesa sells to money who people cannot live in their home. It's an investment. Yeah. We can cross, she can do some of those on the other side of the fence and I can do some of those on the other side, but predominantly our customers are the opposite of, they're not the same people.
Yeah. No, they're not the same at all. Yeah, I can't touch on occupied. If you come to me and say, I want to live in it and I want to rent out the other unit that I'm going to build, I'm going to give you the chain and I can't touch it. So I see in my space, people are doing a value add, is what we call a value add, where they have a basement, like you mentioned, or there's a detached garage and they're going to turn it into a detached dwelling unit, and they're going to add value to the property. A big thing that I've been really diving in and reading about is kind of minimizing a property that was a fourplex and turning it into their own separate units and then selling them off that way. That's something I'm really excited about.
Yeah, tell me about that one.
I'm really excited about it. I haven't done it yet, so I don't want to speak before I've actually lived and breathed it and done it. But that's something that I have seen and a lot of success with people doing that. It's a little niche, but I love that. So attached.
I want to flag that. You said earlier, like, what's the plan now?
Yeah.
Maybe to add to that is creativity, like what you just said, like figure out a way to get the math to work in a new creative way, using rules, using zoning,
new zoning laws, what's happening in Washington about being able to kind of minimize properties. Yes, absolutely. Knowing and studying what is your county, what is your state doing, and where's the growth. I'm a huge component on is where is the growth within your city. And I personally love buying outside of that. And then because it's natural. They all move out. And so then I buy cheaper and fix it up, keep it as a rental. And then if I want to sell it, I can sell it or I keep it. So that's kind of what I like to do. So always know with what your city, what kind of growth is happening within your city or your county and your state. So what I'm seeing is value add. And not a lot of people are just flipping a single property and then calling it good. They're wanting to purchase and having a plan B is also crucial in this market. One of the things I stress about is, so I'm a hard money lender, is our hard monies are for 12 months. You want to be able to have going into a deal knowing a B plan. Meaning, if I don't sell this property, can I hold on to it? Can it debt service? How long am I getting into this loan? Can I get out? Because right now, a lot of title seasoning is for 6 months or 12 months. So you want to be in your loan that you have to be conducive to that. And so it's just planning ahead.
Funny, can I say something?
Yes.
One of the things I love about you is you're the sweetest, kindest, like you could be as surface as you need to be, right? But
Yes.
then when you put on your nerd hat, your words start changing, your body language changes, you're like a ninja, like you go to war. Like I know you have a ton of these conversations every day.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
when you peel off that layer of like not going too deep, because not everybody
Yep.
knows and understands what you do for a living, because it's just
Yeah.
not they don't even know that world exists for them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
many of our listeners are just getting into investing, and I always use this. I want to tell a little mini story. So I always take people shopping. I've taken you shopping before too.
Yes, I love it. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about shopping is I try to convey to people the message of like, we're driving down the road and I'll say, hey, that house 3 doors back, what was in the front yard? And they'll go, I don't know. But then if I say, hey, how about that house? If the house was nice, they will have seen it.
Oh, I think that's my investor brain. I'm like, I would see the ugly house to see if I can have potential.
But most people don't, right? They just, you see what is top of mind to you. If you buy a Honda that's red, you'll start seeing red Hondas. It's
yes,
just the way it works.
exactly.
So a lot of people don't even know that what you do is an option, is a thing in the world that exists, because they just don't know. So.
I appreciate, like, I know I get excited about what I do because I love it. And I see a lot of people have success, and that just brings me joy. And when you start talking numbers, I do geek out and I get excited about it. So you get to see a different.
You also tell people no a lot. She tells me no a lot. I'll call her and be like, hey, I got this idea. And you'll hear her tone change. I'm like, so you don't like it? You don't think it's good? No. And then you know what I do? If my lender, which is you, says she doesn't like the math, I decide I don't like the math either. Not because I can't get the deal from her, but because if she doesn't like it, I mean, her job is to make good decisions with the money. So I'll go back and double check my numbers, and very rarely will I come back and push back and say, I disagree with what you think. Mostly I'll
also know too that I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I've been in this space for going to be 6 years in December, and been doing it. And I, just like you, I fund 25, 30, maybe, a month, but I don't know how many deals get called that I say no to. So just like you, you look at a house and you're like, I know exactly how much this is, what I need to do, how I need to do it. I can look at a deal just by you telling me the purchase price, renovation, and ARV and the location. I'm going to tell you if that's going to work or not, because I get the beauty of not just seeing your loans.
Okay, so here's a
pro everybody else.
For anybody listening. Yeah. When you find an opportunity and you're trying to decide if it is an opportunity, say you don't own a home and you're like, I want to buy an investment property. I'm going to circle it in 2024. I'm going to get in the bad rate environment, I'm going to get a great opportunity, right? Well, when you start thinking like that, you'll be driving down the road and you'll see a house, or someone will have a conversation with you, and something will come to pass where you find yourself in a position where you could make a buying decision. Yeah. But how would you do that?
They call you.
The next call is call someone who borrows money for a living, because they'll tell you the rules of the game of which you're trying to play. So I love that about you. And I think that a lot of people don't understand the value of picking someone's mind when they're making a buying decision. That's
smart.
I think I'm kind of dumb, but I surround myself with smart people, and then I ask tons of questions so that I feel like collectively I know a lot.
You always surround yourself with people that are smarter and doing more than you. That's like the key. But if someone is driving around and saying, I'm going to house hack, they need to call you, because right now I scream to the mountaintops. If you don't own a home, you need to own a home right now. That's like a duplex or a triplex or something, so you can get into a property at 3.5% down. And they call you because they can buy a property and then also have a rental property as their asset. So I always tell my kids, we're in a new
chapter, right? We're in a chapter where equity.
Yep. Yeah.
It might be an equity management chapter, right? Some people have no equity, so they got to go build equity, right? Buy a house and figure out how to pay for it until it, let it grow up. You have to live somewhere. So
they do.
House hacking is cool. So let's talk a little bit about this house hacking thing just for a second.
Okay.
So if you're going to live in a home and house hack it, that would basically imply that you have, you're living in one unit, and then there's other units attached to it that you can rent out, which is really cool because what it lets you do is count that other, because you're buying something that has income flowing in, you
Yep.
can count 75% of each of those units' income as offsetting income to help you qualify on the front end. So that's cool. So, if you could afford a $400,000 house and now you can afford a $600,000 house because you have more income coming into the equation. But can you afford it? Like, well, here's how you would do it. Say your payment is, say you're struggling to buy a house because your mortgage payment would be $3,000 a month. And then you want to buy a duplex that's $4,000 a month. You're like, oh, I was struggling with a 3,000. Now I got four. Well, you have another unit that's sending you $1,750 a month. So now the overall amount you're spending is actually less than it would have been with a single unit. But it's not, it's right in the middle there. It finds it actually ends up offsetting your payment where you're actually paying less than you would have.
Yes.
So right now, house hacking is like when affordability issues are the biggest challenge, hack your way into a house, so buy a multifamily. And right now, multifamilies are hard. So here's what I believe. Quote me for this.
Okay.
I think multifamilies are going to go up by 15 or 20%. Not because of the appreciation value, but because of demand value, right? It's when and then Fannie just created that 5% down loan, right? Super big deal. So now you can buy a multifamily, count all that income, offset it, get yourself into a property for cheaper than you would have otherwise, and you could do it for just 5% down, which just literally, and it doesn't even go into effect till the 18th, I think. So literally right now it costs you 25% to accomplish that same thing.
Exactly.
But you
And
have to live in it. So you can't do it, but I can.
yes,
And I'm
you
going to
can.
start teaching this. I think every parent should go in
College.
and help their kid buy, right? Like, let's get our son their first house and 3 rentals at the same time.
Well, the beauty is real estate is not just for one season in your life. Real estate is in all aspects of the season. Kind of like if you're starting out and you're young and you want a new property, guess what? You can house hack. I'm sure you have 5 or 6 friends, or maybe even two friends that you're going to buy, and you're going to help. They're going to pay your mortgage because you're going to rent to them. Then when they're growing up and you want rentals, let's say they go off to college, guess what? Maybe you can buy a property and have your kids in it and have their buddies pay for that rent. Or if you're wanting to like have more properties, it's just like the beautiful thing about real estate is it's not just one formula, not one avenue, or not one vehicle driving to one destination. Like you can make money in all different ways with real estate. And that's why it's so important to talk with people that are doing it, or a lender, because we see it. We know how you can make other avenues and money going that direction. It's not just one. So
Right.
absolutely, house hacking is huge.
If a listener is listening and they don't own a real estate, let's just use that as our avatar today. Someone who doesn't own a house, who's trying to buy their first home and their first investment in the same go. House hacking is their plan, right? So now we know that we can get into a house right now with 5% down, as little as 3.5% if you go FHA. And if you're a veteran, you can do it for 0 down. So that's kind of cool. So you have 3 loan options that can get you into a home based on how much money you have and your credit and jobs and all those things like that. But that's a low barrier of entry into real estate when you think about what you're doing. You're going to take a loan from a bank for 95% of a purchase price and only have to put in 5. That's a pretty good, barrier of entry, if you will, which is kind of cool. But of course there's debt now. There's these payments that you got to pay for. And so how do you justify buying an asset that's expensive? It changes your job a little bit. It becomes heavy. But I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to be homeless or rent? I mean, there's only
and the rent can continue to go up.
I always say home ownership is it's like the small desk in first grade. Like eventually you got to outgrow the first grade desk, and home ownership is part of that in my mind. Anybody who advises someone not to own a home, I can't agree with that. I
never can agree with that, because rent,
you're going to buy a home and an investment. I mean, what ends up happening is you buy that, you make that happen, you make that tall order, and you get into the market, right? And then you serve some time, and then you're like, okay, I'm getting married, or I don't want to live here anymore, or I like dogs and it's not good to have dogs, like whatever your thing is. Now you suddenly have this opportunity where you have one asset that's going to help you buy another one. And I think that's where the multiplier, that like people put yourself in a position where you can have a chance to do another. Right? It's like, because you can use the equity, or you can, you could sell it and you can refinance, you can pull money out, you can rent it and get to use the cash flow. Like it gives you
Yeah.
choices, and it helps you be, in my mind, it moves you towards being,
Financially
adulting with
free.
money, where your money is kind of working for you a little bit, which is kind of
Yep.
nice, right?
Absolutely. And
So,
then the other, I know that we're cutting on time and I know we're going to do another episode, but just that in itself, there's also tax implications, tax benefits for owning another property. And there's so many other reasons why someone would want to own a property, not just one. So when they buy one, they live in a couple of years, they can get the equity and then they can move again. And then they can also get more
mhm.
funds. So in my opinion, real estate is the best vehicle that you can to start. I hate the financial freedom because you still have debt and you pay, but start making income, residual income. And I love real estate.
Redigital
Residual.
income. I always tell my kids that they can do whatever they want in their life, but they should own some real estate too. And if you're my kid, you have to own it with your dad. Like, I want to be part of it. I want to own a house, so they have to hang out with me and have to do work with me, So,
Yep,
well, thank you everybody for tuning in.
absolutely.
Our first one. It's kind of more of a casual talk where we're just playing off
Yeah,
each other, which I think is cool.
yeah,
Um, Part of me wants to try to figure out how to have, tangible, real things that people can grab onto and go and use in their day. I think I'm very practical in that way. I don't like to give gifts that don't have, like, I
right.
want them to solve a problem in someone's life. Buying something like a toy doesn't make sense, but giving them a fishing pole, like, it's just something about me that I want to see people grow. So if you're listening to this and we're hoping that you're inspired.
Yes,
That's why we call it Real Estate Inspired. Not that because it's easy, not because we feel like there's only one way to do it, but because real estate happens when you participate in it. So be inspired, take action, make it your own, and we're trying to build a community here. Like,
yeah.
that's the whole point. So we hope you're feeling inspired. Hope it gets you closer to your next spot in the journey, and we want to keep our momentum going.
Yes,
So tune in, and if you need anything, Lesa and Shane, we can help you. We can
we can
be
take
your
care of
first
you.
call, which is
Yes,
awesome. All right.
absolutely. Thank you, everybody.